I have completed over 100 oil paintings. I almost never began on canvas without sketching first. And the most important thing the sketch does is not test the composition. It is where I decide what the painting needs that the reference does not show. I'm going to demonstrate with a photograph that was used as a reference for this painting. Here is a photograph of the T.A. Moulton barn in the Grand Teton National Park, given to me by a friend. In and of itself, it's a beautiful picture, but it's not a good painting. As I looked at it, what I decided I wanted to do was to move the building from the foreground back somewhere in this area, making both the building and this center area of these beautiful mountains the primary center of focus. The grass here in the front was too lush and drew your attention away from the mountains and the cabin. So I decided to change all of that. I did not want to include all of the mountain range. I wanted to move the building back and make it smaller so that it becomes not the only center of focus, but a portion of it. I decided I wanted to cut off the mountains somewhere at around this point. There's a mountain actually, so if I move the building and make it smaller back into this area, then I needed to add a mountain there, and the exact details I couldn't really see. The trees make a nice border or line, and I wanted to put a row of those on either side of the actual building once I moved it to the back. So I decided that I would start the painting at about a fourth of the way up to get rid of all of the extra grass that was there. So this is approximately half. This is approximately a fourth. So it was my intent to bring the level at which the building was going to be sitting somewhere along this line to make the border between the mountains and the prairie below somewhere a little higher, along about this level, and to position the building so that it was centered more or less where the mountains were. In the picture, the mountain occupies roughly 65 or 70% of the height, so I'm going to put it up at about here, more or less in the center of the picture, and that is going to be the center of the roughly the back edge of the building, which is going to be here. And we'll do something of this sort as a sketch. Bring it down and make the building roughly there. So that's sort of where the building sits. And then the line of trees that were in the picture, I'm going to put here generally this area, and another similar line on the other side to draw your attention toward the center. The mountaintop here is the tallest peak. We're going to leave it that way. I'm going to start at about here and bring a mountain in, which is closer, and then go back up with a mountain again here. There's a distant one in the back here. another taller distant one behind that, and then another peak here. Then this peak comes down roughly there, second peak, and the third one roughly there. Comes down, and then, as I said, there's another mountain back there that I can't really see, so I'm just going to put it in an approximation of what I think it should be. There will be clouds, and one can sketch in the rest of some of the details. This mountain comes down like so, and this is basically what I would transfer over to the canvas. Just take this as the baseline of what I was doing and come along and transfer this onto my canvas in just a rough drawing, about as simple as that drawing is there. I'm going to make it a late afternoon or sunset time, which means I'm going to change it from the pure white in the mountains, and I'm going to add a bit more snow here than is actually in this picture. I'm going to have the suns coming from the left-hand side of the picture as it's setting, and the clouds will be infused with golds and pinks from the sunset, as will some of the portions of the building and the mountains, and especially the snow that's catching the sunlight low in the left side of the painting. As I said, then I would go to my canvas and transfer an approximate drawing similar to this over to the canvas. Once I start painting, depending on the size of the canvas, it could take me anywhere from 15 to 30 hours to finish the actual painting.
No landscape photograph is entirely satisfactory as painting subject matter without modification. Almost every reference requires adding, removing, or repositioning elements. The camera records without judgment. The sketch is where the painter decides. If you approach a photograph intending to copy it faithfully, you are doing the camera's job. If you approach it intending to decide what the painting needs, you are doing the painter's job. In this particular painting, it was done from a photograph that friends took in the Canadian Rockies during the winter time with a lot of snow on the mountains. There was no lake down here. There was none of the hazy convergence from the sides to create a dreamlike state. Those were all painters' decisions. In 1974, I moved a building across the Moldau River because the painting required it, and used a Vietnam Carrier sky because it belonged over that river. Both decisions were made in the sketch phase before a brushstroke was ever placed on the canvas. For abstract paintings, I sketch in pastel, testing both composition and color simultaneously, up to an hour for the sketch because those questions are more complex. The same discipline, but a different tool. 5 questions every painting, every time. Where does the eye enter? Where does it travel? Where does it come to rest? Is anything competing for attention of the center focus? And what does this reference show that the painting does not need? And what does the painting need that the reference does not show? Subscribe, and we will learn.